Um, so first of all, thanks to Matt, obviously taking a bit of time out of his potentially busy schedule to have a bit of a chat. I know a few of the boys have got some questions, but I thought I would ask him a few questions first, because I know there'll be a few things that will probably come up a few times, the first of which will probably be the whole COVID situation. And then after I've asked him a few, then I'll obviously get you boys to ask him what you want to. So the first one is, Matty, any news on what's going to happen this season?
No, well, basically we're waiting on. There's some meetings today and throughout this week from the Premier League. As with the football system, all filters down from the top level. So what the Premier League decide in terms of their dates for their restart will affect what we're going to do. The unfortunate nature of the pandemic means that there's extra costs involved with testing to provide a safe environment. The Premier League teams and the Premier League as a company can afford to do that testing. Unfortunately, the lower leagues might not be able to afford to do that testing, and that might not be willing to do that testing. So it might well be a case where we get a date within the next week or so where we say we're going to come back to training and look to play games, or it might well be the case that actually the season gets cancelled altogether. And if the season gets cancelled altogether, then it's going to be down to each and every individual league to decide what happens promotion and relegation wise.
What do you think they might do regarding promotion relegation?
Well, there's various ideas. Obviously, a points per game idea is one. One idea is to have no relegation or no promotion whatsoever, and that still depends on the filtering down from the top league. So, if the Premier League play, you'd think they would play with the proviso that 3 teams would get relegated, and then so Championship would need to get 3 teams promoted, etc. And it always filters down. The problem is you've got to have a majority vote when it goes to the owners of the league teams in lower league football in terms of the EFL. And to reach a majority, you've got to basically please a minimum of 70% of the owners. So I honestly don't know what's going to happen at the moment. I think it's becoming more and more apparent that our league season won't start on our intended date, which was the first or second week in June. I think that time frame's not realistic. So unfortunately, we're waiting on some news from the Premier League first and foremost, and then the EFL. And then it might well be a case that our season is cancelled and it gets put to a vote. What happens with our season?
I mean, I think one of the boys has already worked out that if it went to a points per game, we would miss out fractionally.
Yeah, well, by one of the ways for doing points per game, we'd finish 5th. If you took into account results early on this season, we'd finish 3rd. It all depends how you calculate the points per game,
right.
Based on previous games or actually previous results as opposed to games left. Either way, there's unfortunately no fair and proper way of doing it. It'll all be down to whether the leagues decide that they want promotion and relegation to happen when there's still possibly between 9 and 12 games left of a football season. And for teams to get promoted when there's that amount of time and that amount of games left, there's 30 points still to play for. So whatever happens, the league won't be really credible. But we just want a chance for promotion. So if worst case scenario was we finished outside the top 3 as it stands, we would want and we'd expect to play the playoffs. And whether they did that in June or July or even August, I think it's realistic that they could play 3 games as opposed to the remaining league games. They could certainly play the playoffs behind closed doors at a neutral venue in a safe environment just to get the playoffs sorted out as opposed to the top 3 automatic spots.
How do you think we would have done if the season has been, or if we get to play it out? Would you back us to go top 3?
Well, definitely. I mean, we've been in the top 3 the majority of the season. We literally had a run of 4 games without a win, which is why we dropped out of the top 3. But we'd had some difficult fixtures in that period. And generally, we had 5 home games left. Our home form has been outstanding. Only lost once at home all season. And we had some good fixtures to come. So we were certainly backing ourselves. We were in a good position. We had a squad of players coming back from injury in a good place. But you never know. We had 9 games left. Cheltenham had 10 games left. Crewe, Swindon, Plymouth, teams all around us, even Colchester and Northampton below us. So you never quite know what happens in football. But if it was between 1 and 2 games left, then you've got a better indication. But when there's so many points to play for and so much can happen in 9 or 10 games, that there's so many different variables. So we were still backing ourselves, which is why we'd back ourselves if the playoffs were played. But there's going to be some decisions made by the leagues first and foremost, and then the owners with a view to what happens. And either way, there'll be people who are disappointed. You can't get away from that fact. We just hope we're not the disappointed party. People's safety is paramount, but also we want something to show for the hard work we've done this season.
If they do go and they go points per game and we do end up playoffs, that's going to be what, another month or so. How are the players going to be coming in fresh to the playoff game in June?
Well, it'd be difficult. It's not ideal, but then you've got to do whatever it takes in terms of getting those games played. The players are desperate to play. That's one thing I've said time and time again in any interview I've done. The players are desperate to play. They want it to be a safe environment, but they don't want to be sat cooped up at home and only be able to train on their own. They're desperate to get to the training ground and desperate to play and be part of the team again. And they'd be willing to do that. They're relatively fit. They've had a bit of not an off-season, but a bit of a downtime period where they've not done too much physical work. We've started to build them back up physically because we expected to be training towards the end of May. So they're not a million miles off it. And within 2 or 3 weeks of training, players get back to some sort of physical position they need to be able to play competitive football. So it's one of those, it's not ideal, but we certainly wouldn't complain about it. And if it gave us a chance at promotion, then I'm sure our players would be motivated for it, but also in the best physical shape they could be. And the other side of it is you've got to think about players are playing for their futures. We've got a whole host of players out of contract. Those players have got a better chance of staying at the club or within the club if we got promoted and more revenue came into the club from being in League One. Because obviously there's so many financial restraints in terms of what's happened with the virus. So players are motivated. It's just being able to get the games played in a safe environment, which the EFL and obviously the Premier League to start with have to look at doing.
I suppose if they get going and if either we play this season out or we go for playoffs and whatever, that's going to be towards June, July time, doesn't give you very much time for next season planning. So are you doing that already?
Yeah, well, we've got planning in place already. Planning for the following season starts really early. So we basically started planning for next season from Christmas onwards, as we always do. But what we do expect is that next season won't start on time. It's becoming more and more apparent that next season will start probably September at the earliest, possibly even October, to limit the amount of time and limit the amount of games which are played behind closed doors. As you know, with all levels of football and all levels of sport, there's only so long a club can survive with no attendances and no fans coming in through the gates. So at the moment, they're predicting October at the earliest, but more realistically 2021 for people to come back watching live sport and watching live sport together. So all clubs need to limit the amount of time being played behind closed doors. So that season will start a little bit later. So it won't be like we've got playoffs in July and then starting again in August. Yeah. I would predict and I would imagine that we start a pre-season towards September time with the league starting towards the end of September.
Would that mean the transfer window drops back as well with it, I would imagine?
Transfer window will drop back. I actually expect the transfer window to be open all the way through to January because the market and the way the situations are with players' contracts and the clubs not knowing the time frame for when fans will be allowed back in means there's too much uncertainty to commit to budgets. So I would expect and I imagine they open the transfer window all the way through from the start of next season to January to give players a chance to sign for a club when they can, and to give clubs a chance to sign players when they can actually afford to do that.
So, I mean, if it's going to be January at the earliest that they start to get people back through the doors, is the club stable enough to get through that far?
Well, no club's probably stable enough, but clubs can find a way to cost cut, which is obviously a really difficult aspect of my job. Budgets will be frozen. I've got to cut budgets, both playing staff and all aspects related. So that's a really difficult aspect of the job. And we're planning for all scenarios. Best case scenario, someone comes up with a vaccine and we get back to normal life and football, like everything else, just returns to some sort of normality. That's probably not realistic in the time frame we're talking about. So we're working to all different scenarios. We're working to a scenario where we play in front of fans from the start of next season, i.e. September, October onwards. We're working to a scenario where we play in front of fans halfway through the season, through January. And we're also working to a scenario where we don't play in front of any fans at all next season. So in terms of what we're planning for, we're obviously cost cutting straight away. And then that's a really I must mention difficult part, but something which has to be examined, because you can't just cut costs straight away and then have no product. You still need a product on the pitch, and you still need a football club to operate in the right manner. And everything counts within that, including the academy and the trust, the community, and the stadium alongside our first team as well. So the club's still got to run, but we've got to do it on a skeleton playing staff, a skeleton coaching staff, and for the least amount of money possible. So a lot of challenges ahead, a lot of difficult decisions ahead, and a lot of things we're going to have to do for the best interest of the club. But the club is stable in the meantime, but every single club will tell you that they can't continue to survive with no finances and no cash flow coming in.
I suppose the other thing is, with like contracts with players, they normally run till June, I presume. They just go on until the end of this season, and they...
Yeah, so the proposal is that we're trying to get this season finished in June and July. So players that are under contract, the ones who are out of contract, are under contract until the 30th of June. They actually get paid a severance package in July, so they get money in July as well, regardless of whether the season's finished or not, or regardless of whether they've got another club in the future. So basically, clubs pay players till the end of July. So in theory, the clubs aren't losing any more money if a player agrees to play in June and July. The problem lies that the players in July would be playing with no contract to their name. And that's a risk which some players might not be willing to take. It might be something that some players aren't comfortable with. And it might be a scenario where some players have actually got a contract elsewhere ready to sign from August onwards, and they don't want to risk getting injured. So you've got to take everything into account. I've said publicly, I've said to my players that there's no pressure on what they decide to do in terms of their own situations, similar to what we've done with the wage deferrals, that each and every situation is different. And I'm certainly not in a position to judge their own circumstances. And I totally understand if a player played till the end of June, but then didn't want to play in July or didn't feel comfortable playing in July, because if I can't offer a contract, or if the club can't offer them a contract, we certainly can't stop their chances of getting a contract elsewhere and put them in harm's way in terms of risking. So that's down to each individual. We've got a group of 8 players who are out of contract on the 30th of June, and similar to a lot of players in the same scenario throughout the country, they're going to be in a really difficult position, because no one understands the market which is going to start at the end of this season, because we don't know when the season is going to end. We don't know what that looks like, and we don't know what next season looks like as well. So it's a really difficult situation, and the conversations we've had with our players has been about their mental well-being as much as their physical well-being.
I mean, do you think, sorry, last question from me, do you think it'll be easier then to pick up players in some respects in the early transfer window? Because if there's going to be so much uncertainty, therefore there might be more better players on the periphery.
It's a possibility. It's just an unknown. It is an unprecedented scenario which has never happened before, and hopefully never happens again. So it's a total unknown. Will players take contracts for less money? Possibly, but then you've still got to sign these players, and you've still got to pay players. Like I mentioned before, my budget is currently frozen, so I've got no money available, and unless any money comes into the club, I can't sign any players. So it depends which clubs have the most money. Survival of the fittest. Sounds absolutely incredible that some clubs won't be affected by this at all, because we're a club owned by the trust, so we've got no chairman putting money in, so we generate our own money. Some clubs have got an owner or a chairman whose business hasn't been affected whatsoever, so they'll still have the same budget, they'll still have the same financial backing. Our situation is very much dependent on the cash flow from the revenue from player sales, but also fans coming to watch us. So we're in a different situation to a lot of clubs, but then some of these clubs have owners who've got a business who've basically been hit harder than anything else with the pandemic. So I honestly don't know what it will look like in terms of the next transfer window. The only thing I know for sure is that I've got probably 12 to 14 senior players, and I call senior players who've got first team experience, and then a host of contracted young players. So we're stable in terms of what we've got. We could put a team on the pitch. The strength of that team would obviously be different to what it has been in recent seasons. But then it might be a season where we give youth the chance and promote our young players as best we can, and get a stable season in League Two. Maybe not challenging promotion, but certainly a stable season. And success might well look like we sell 1 or 2 players, and all of a sudden there's more money in the club for the following season. So it's how you get judged and how you decide what looks best for your club at each time. And like I say, as each player's situation is different, I imagine each manager's situation is different throughout the board as well.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it actually works in our favour that we've got quite a youngish side on paper anyway, in that a lot of them possibly aren't going to be on huge contracts.
Definitely.
Therefore, this gives the opportunity going forward.
The strength of the club has always been the academy, and our running and leasing trophy this season showed that some of those young players are really close to first team level. It's a bigger jump than people give credit for in terms of the transition from an academy player to actually first team player on a consistent basis. But they've got to play first team football at some stage. So, like I say, we might just sacrifice a few performances and a few results in terms of just bleeding our young players and giving them the opportunity, and see the benefits further down the line.
Okay, good. There's all my questions. Right, this is the bit where I panic a little bit. Who's got some questions or a question for Matty?
I've got one, sir.
Go on, Sam.
What's your favourite aspect of managing Exeter?
This is a good question. Really good question.
The fans.
Obviously, fans play a part. Probably the responsibility. People speak about how you feel when you win and lose games as a manager compared to when you win and lose games as a player. There's nothing worse than when you've lost a game as a manager because you've not had any physical exertion and you've not been able to affect directly what happens on the pitch. You pick your team, you select your team, you make your substitutions, you do a tactical analysis of the opposition, and you put your tactics across to your own team, but it still comes down to your players. But the feeling you get when you win, it really does trump, and it outweighs the feeling you get when you win as a player, because the satisfaction levels are incredible. So basically being proud of the team you put on a pitch and proud of the way they conduct themselves, but the way they play is the most rewarding aspect of the job. But the actual responsibility of being a manager of a club like Exeter, a community club, and something which a club which stands for something within our local environment is something I'm immensely proud of. And keeping the club as successful as it has been in recent seasons is certainly my aim and my goal, and something we're trying to do. So it's not always the most rewarding jobs because there's bits and pieces people don't see, but you've got to always look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is having a stable club, and also a club which promotes young players, and does it in a way that we give those young players an opportunity within the first team. And that's something I'm immensely proud of with the way Exeter City has always worked and will probably always work in the future.
Good question. Who else?
I'll go.
Go on, Lucas.
So with like all the playing behind closed doors and stuff, and because we're a fans like trust club, do you think like we'll be in trouble at some point?
Possibly. Like I say, the uncertainty of not knowing how long we'll have to play behind closed doors is huge for the club. And I've spoke about the scenarios we're working to in terms of budgets and finances. But it's not just our club; it's clubs throughout the board, and it's any sport. So whether it be cricket, football, tennis, they only survive on sponsorship and corporate deals and revenue coming into the club, which is basically generated by the product, which is football on the pitch and people watching that product. So obviously people can watch on Sky and what have you, but our lower levels are generally not shown on TV. So it's how we earn our money and how we get a cash flow into the club. There's a limit on how long any club, not only our club, but any club can survive with no attendances. And the uncertainty in terms of the pandemic and how serious this virus has become will go on for years and years and years. And even if we allow people to come back into our stadium, would they feel safe to do so? We've got to provide a safe stadium and a safe environment, and people have got to want to come back to it. So I'm sure people will want to go outdoors and play sport and watch sport, but they'll only do it if it's safe to do so. They certainly don't want to put themselves or their loved ones at risk. So there's certainly a time frame for our club, but I'm sure that goes throughout the board in terms of all clubs. There's only so long sport and football clubs especially can survive with no fans coming to watch them, I'm afraid.
Just on the back of that, mate, do you think we'll lose clubs? Do you think clubs will go under?
Look, this is a side note, and I've got to be careful what I say because I don't want to swear, but there were clubs even before this pandemic and before this serious situation who were on the brink, and that's a really disappointing thing to say, because you saw the example of Bury being expelled
Yeah.
going bust as a club. Before the season started, Bolton started with a 12-point deduction in League One. The clubs like Southend, Macclesfield and Oldham haven't been paying their players even before this. So in terms of that aspect, the way the EFL has to assess the way clubs are run needs to be examined, because too many clubs basically function beyond their means. They spend too much money without enough money coming in, and it's not a safe environment to do so. And always the clubs get caught and the owners can walk away, but the clubs get left with huge debt and often don't survive. One thing I will say is that this pandemic probably means that the EFL and the football leagues won't allow clubs to go bust because of it. So some have actually been handed a lifeline because the press and the publicity of clubs going bust due to this pandemic won't be allowed by the leagues. So the EFL won't allow any of their league teams to go bust because of it. So they'll give them financial support, whether that's right or not, because like I just touched upon, even beforehand, some clubs were really on the brink. So Exeter City have always conducted themselves properly since the time when we did actually have the real financial problems. So 20 odd years ago, people went to jail, the club was in administration, the club was bankrupt, and it was a really difficult time. And we learned from that, and we've had probably 20 years of growth and stability. Now, a lot of other clubs are finding, like we did, finding out 20 years ago, that you can't function beyond your means. You've got to justify the wages and the money going out with money coming in. So how that gets assessed and evaluated is going to be down to the Football League. But one thing for sure, how they started the season with one less team in League One is beyond me. And how teams can start a season with a points deduction of over 10 points like Bolton did this season, basically it means you're getting relegated. How that happens, I honestly don't know. So clubs have got to run themselves a lot better than they have done in the past, but they need to be managed from above, and that comes from the EFL and obviously the Premier League. Because people see the bright lights of promotion and success, but it costs an awful lot of money. And if you've got to put your club at risk by doing so, it's not the right thing to do. So I don't think other clubs will go bust because of it. I think there'll be a knock-on effect all the way through the football pyramid, which has a really substantial impact on finances at all levels. And we spoke about possible wage structures being a lot less. But I don't think any other clubs will go bust because of it.
Okay. Questions?
I'll go on.
Go for it.
Going back to player sales, Hiram Boateng, when he left, has there been any payment for him at all? And I guess that would help right now.
Yeah, so Hiram left at the end of last season. He obviously turned down a contract which we offered him. He had better offers elsewhere. Obviously, left the club, and we got a fee for a tribunal. Now, within that fee, there was a payment to Crystal Palace because that's where we got him from, and part of that agreement was money to Hiram. As far as I'm aware, that is an undisclosed fee, which I'm not allowed to talk about in terms of the actual figure. But it wasn't a substantial amount, because when it goes to tribunal, it all goes down to how long a player has been with the club and who's developed the player the most. And Hiram was only with us for 18 months. So Palace got the most amount of money through tribunal. We got a small amount because, like I say, he'd only been with us for 18 months. So money coming in is what we survive on. But in Hiram's situation, unfortunately, because we hadn't developed him through our own academy, we didn't receive much at all in the tribunal. So you're right to touch upon any money coming in from transfers is vitally important and keeps us going. It's our revenue, it's our source of income. But the Hiram situation, we didn't receive much at all.
Okay.
Very specific, Max.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Questions?
I've got one.
Go on, Jed.
When you were in early career, when you played a goalkeeper, what made you change from being a goalkeeper to a centre back?
It's not surreal. It's strange, really. That throughout my childhood, I played as a goalkeeper at my own level. So if I was an under 13 player, I'd play as a goalkeeper. But I was good enough to play in the older age group as an outfield player or a centre half. So I always doubled up playing for my old age group as a goalkeeper, and I'd play outfield for the older age groups as well. And I did that throughout my school years from 13 to 16. When I went to college, I played non-league football as a goalkeeper, but I played for college as a centre half, an outfield player, and I did the same at university as well. So I always combined the two. I just actually had a small career, not a small career, but I had a career in non-league football as a goalkeeper. because I got my first chance in non-league football as a goalkeeper. But alongside it, I was always playing for my college, my university, or as an outfield player. And then when I got scouted playing for England universities when I was at university as an outfield player by Team Bath, I sort of made the transition from non-league football as a goalkeeper to non-league football at Team Bath as a centre half. So it wasn't as big a jump as people expect or make out in terms of one day I thought I'm bored of playing in goal, I want to go and play outfield. I always combined both roles, to be honest with you. And in hindsight, should I have played centre half from an earlier age and at non-league level? Possibly, but at the time I wasn't a bad goalkeeper, so it is strange, and it is a strange story. I understand that, but I'm certainly thankful for the way it sort of shaped what I became.
Where do you prefer playing?
I prefer playing centre half. I actually prefer playing up front because they get all the glory. But it was incredible because, like I say, I had time at professional clubs in my school years. But I was, it sounds stupid, I was really small up until I was 16. So as a goalkeeper, I got released from Preston North End because I was 5'5" when I was 16. Ironically, by the time I started college, I'd grown 5 inches. I was 5'10", and by the time I left college, I was 6'2". So I just grew late. I was a late developer physically. So I missed out on that chance of a YTS or a contract at 16, probably due to physicality more than anything. But I love playing in nets. I love diving around. I was, like I say, a relatively successful non-league career. We won the FA Trophy at Burstall, which was a huge achievement. But there was always part of me which felt I could be successful playing outfield. I just got that opportunity for university and Team Bath. And I loved it. But I suppose I just love football. I love sport and I love football. So being able to have a career was fantastic. And whatever avenue and whatever position allowed me to have the best career, I was going to do whatever it took. And luckily I had a 10-year career playing centre half.
Any other questions?
I have another one.
Go on, Doddy.
So you played for us, and you're like the captain and stuff.
Yeah.
So what's it been like to play for them and then see the club change over time and then now like be the manager?
Well, it's great because, I obviously played for the club. I had 4 years, which were probably the most successful years in the club's history. We got promoted in my first year from the conference. We got promoted straight away through League Two. We stayed up on the last day of the season in our first year in League One and then finished 8th in League One, which is our highest ever position in the football pyramid. So those 4 years were fantastic. It went hand in hand with the time where we were producing good players and selling good players, and the club was, those seasons in League One. Some of the teams we played against were fantastic for a club the size of Exeter City. To go to the likes of the Sheffield clubs and to Leeds and to Charlton and teams like that, and to play them at the Park was fantastic. So the club had a great period. As with everything in football related, people move on, and I chose to move on after 4 years. But when I came back to the club, not just the reception I got, but the way I understood the club and the people within the club was vitally important in terms of what was needed as a coach and then as a manager. And that's one thing where I'm so lucky that I got my first opportunity as manager at a club I feel I understand and have an affiliation with. You see it so often that managers go into a club and not the lifespan, but the time frame for a manager in professional football is 14 months, so just over a year. And it's such a short amount of time, and that's basically because they don't understand the club. The club doesn't understand the manager, and there's no affiliation or there's no real relationship between the manager and the fans. And the moment it goes wrong in football, and it does at times, then you need those relationships they're the foundation that everything's built on. And we speak about Exeter being a stable club. So I'm immensely proud to be able to manage a club like Exeter. It's almost my second home. Look, I'm a northern lad from a long way from here, but I spent 4 years playing here, and I've been back here as 3.5 years as a coach, 2 years of which as a manager. So I've had a lot of time in terms of my footballing career down in Exeter, and I love it down here. So immensely proud to see what the club's become. Immensely proud to be a sort of a leading figure within that. But I also understand how our working club is unique to any other club in the country. We are owned by the trust and we are owned by the fans, and like we spoke about, we've got no chairman putting in money, so we've got to work within our means, but we've also got to generate our money. So we are a development club where we've got to develop players and make the best out of what we've got. So immensely proud, but also having an understanding about your working environment. And that's probably one bit of advice I'd give to any kids in school, or anyone really going into any working job, is you've got to understand it and they've got to understand you as well. And the better you prepare for something and the more understanding you've got of the role you go into, the more successful you'll be.
Any other questions, gents?
Yeah, I've got one, Mr. Halse.
Go on, Mr. Ryan.
So you said that you've put quite a lot of focus on your players' mental health over this period. I was wondering what sort of measures you've put in place.
So basically, various staff within our first team coaching group have delivered various programs via Zoom, via Skype, via video messages. So we're trying to deliver as much as we can within the guidelines of lockdown, so the players can exercise for a certain amount of time per day or once a day, previously to yesterday. And they had a program from the S&C coach. They would feed back to that S&C coach and the physios in terms of how they felt physically. But in terms of the mental well-being, it's something we've had to monitor consistently. So myself and 3 other actual football coaches have phoned each and every player each week, just to speak to them, to find out what lockdown looks like and what lockdown feels like for each player. And each player's situation is different. So we've actually had players who have been in isolation away from their own family because they've got loved ones who are in the high risk category. So we've even had players literally living on their own in a house with no one else and not leaving the house. So it's certainly been difficult for some individuals. We've had the more senior players with their families and their young kids, and anyone will testify that looking after young kids in lockdown isn't always easy because you can't take them out and can't distract them too much. So just been a platform for players to relay any fears or any feelings towards us has been something vitally important. We've had Skype calls with the whole group. I know players have conducted quizzes between themselves, which has been fantastic to see. It shows the team spirit within the group. But being on the end of a telephone call and showing you care about the players has been vitally important. And as I say, players, we've had to do with staff as well. But understanding what people are going through has been our main protocol, and something I've been doing as managers, trying to understand what it looks like for each player in lockdown. On the back of what the Prime Minister said yesterday, you'll be able to go outside a little bit more, but still within the guidelines. So certainly a strange time because players want to play football, but they want to do it in a safe environment. And we speak about safety, that the mental side of football is one which is going to be put under more and more pressure. And I alluded to it earlier, we have got 8 players out of contract, and I can guarantee you that mentally they will be worried at the moment, and they will be going into a time of uncertainty. Some of those 8 players have got young families, some of them have got babies on the way and children who are dependent on them. So it is a real time of uncertainty where they'll need our support more than ever. And it's not as if we can just not offer a player a contract and then put them to the wayside. We're going to have to really follow up with constant communications and make sure that their mental and physical well-being is at a level we can say is okay for them.
Has anyone got anything else before I ask the last couple?
I've got a question.
Go on, James.
What are the main points you go off to pick a starting side?
So obviously the form of recent performances is important. Understanding what players are capable of is hugely important. Partnerships all over the pitch. It's an easier aspect of the job when the team's winning and the team in form, because the players basically pick themselves to a certain extent. But we see them on a daily basis. We see how they're training throughout the week. We see if they're physically at a little bit of a low, if they're a little bit fatigued, if mentally they're struggling a little bit, if they've got any injuries, if they've got long-standing injuries or need a rest or need more physical work. So we assess the whole group, we assess the opposition, and we try and pick the team which is capable of implementing the game plan we think is going to be successful. Like I touched upon earlier, the moment it's 3 o'clock and those players step over that white line, they're very much on their own in terms of what they are, what they can do and how they perform. And with everything skill related. It's all about how you execute your skills on the day. And we've had a relatively successful season this season, and generally the players have performed pretty well. But we are at a level where a lot of League Two clubs are at a similar level, and it comes down to moments of brilliance. It comes down to mistakes, and it comes down to your better players performing in those critical moments. We call them momentum shifters or critical moments, and that's what we try and pick a team based on. At our level, if you've watched it, you'll understand it has to be a physical aspect of the game. So a physicality, distance covered, strength, speed, actual size is important. Can they defend set pieces? Can they deliver a set piece ball? Are they a threat to the opposition? What is their job within the team? And then trying to decide with 11 players is often a difficult aspect of it. But like I said, it's the most rewarding part when you get it right, or you feel you get it right, and the team wins the game. So lots to take into account, and it's not just myself. I rely heavily on my coaches because they see the players as much as I do in terms of influencing team selection.
Anyone else got any questions before I wrap up? Go on,
Can
Sam.
Yeah. Is the Exeter City Plymouth rivalry as heated amongst the players as it is amongst the fans?
Good question.
It's a really good question because obviously it's huge between the fans. It is, but only at the time when the games are playing. Does that make sense? So because we've got 22 other teams to contend with alongside Plymouth, the 23rd team, we can't concentrate on Plymouth the rest of the time. So the players are focused on, for example, if we were playing Salford next, they would be focused fully on Salford. Whereas as fans, they've always got that rivalry inside them throughout the year. But then when we do play Plymouth, the players, look, they understand fully how big a fixture that is. And the rivalry is there for all to see. And it has been and will always be a rivalry there. And that's why it's great to have derbies at all level of football. And we're lucky we've got one of the bigger ones in the Devon derby. But we can't obsess about it when we're not playing them, because we can't expend any energy or time worrying about something we can't affect, apart from when we can affect it, which is when we play them. So probably 51 weeks out of 52 in the year, we're not thinking about Plymouth, but the time we play them, then we are very much thinking about them, and the rivalry is there. And we were lucky enough to have a good result against them at the park earlier on in the season. And anyone who was there would have felt that atmosphere that day. We were due to play Plymouth down at their place, and I think they'd sold out 18,000 tickets, which is incredible for a fixture at League Two level. It was going to be live on Sky, and it was a fixture everyone was looking forward to. But as I've mentioned, in football, you can only concentrate on that fixture when it is your next game. And I think we had Salford and possibly Scunthorpe to play before that Plymouth game. So you can only concentrate on what's next, and that is certainly the next fixture. But players and staff along with the fans, we certainly understand the rivalry within the derby.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I got one.
Go on then, last one, and then I'll wrap up.
How do you think that they should get the season finished?
So my personal my opinion is that with so much left of the season, that no one should get promoted or relegated if games can't be played. So at our level, if the season is cancelled fully as of now, 9, 10, 11 games is too much of the season to decide promotion and relegation. So my personal opinion, and this is opinion, is that if it gets cancelled now, there should be no promotion and relegation. My preference, so what I'd prefer, is that if it gets cancelled now, that the teams at the top and near the top have the opportunity of getting promoted. And we've spoke about the points per game system, which puts us 5th. I mean, it's a playoff position. So if we're in a playoff position, 4th to 7th, you should get the chance of actually playing a playoff game as opposed to getting promoted in 4th position. So my personal opinion is that there's too much gone on in terms of this season being credible and too big a time gap anyway. And there's too many games left, with 10 games left for most teams. So there should be a promotion relegation. But like I said, that's only dependent on what the Premier League decide to do. And then it filters down to us. My preference and what I want to happen, I want to get promoted. So I want the opportunity to get promoted, and the team and the staff want the opportunity to get promoted. So we would like, if it is the league standing as it is, we would like the opportunity to play those playoff games. And at least then we can say we failed on the back of being beaten, as opposed to a points per game system with 10 games left is incredible.
Where does that leave Argyle out of interest? Do they go up automatic?
As it stands, yeah.
Oh, it's no good, is it?
So as it stands, the top three, I think Swindon would go above Crewe. So it'd be Swindon, Crewe, Plymouth. And Cheltenham would go above us to fourth. Then it would be ourselves, Colchester and Northampton. So, like I say, my preference would be Cheltenham, ourselves, and Colchester and Northampton playing playoff games. Like, they must be contracted for the TV, because it's on TV every year in terms of the Sky contracts. Behind closed doors, there's no reason football and sport has to start again. But that would be my preference.
Okay, last couple of questions then, just for you boys, really. Matty, what are the key things you look for in a young footballer?
So, in everything, not just football, but in life, we look at attitude and character. So if we've got two players of similar ability, I can guarantee you now that the one with the better attitude and better character and work ethic mindset will go further than the other player. And that's such a relevant aspect to young men, but young people, is their attitude to their career and their attitude to work. So it might be your schoolwork, it might be your attitude to your training in a sporting environment. Whoever's got the best attitude and mentality towards their work ethic will go the furthest. And you can have all the talent in the world, but if you've not got a work ethic and a desire to improve alongside it, you won't go as far. And you've got to be passionate about it. So we recruit based on character and attitude as much as actual ability. You could have the most talented players in the world, but they would just not fit in at Exeter, because at Exeter City you have to want to improve, you have to come in and work hard every day, you have to be honest and respectful and conduct yourself in the right manner, and that's our reputation as a club. So like I say, our recruitment, I'd love to pick the best 5 players in our league, but character-wise they wouldn't fit Exeter City. So we try and sign good people and then hopefully making good players alongside that.
Best young player you've coached, managed?
Well, in terms of myself, Ethan Ampadu, and I've just touched upon it there in the last couple of minutes, his attitude to his work and his trade, which was football, was the best I've ever seen. And I mean the best I've seen in terms of my own playing career, coaching career and managerial career. So, and I've played with some good players at Exeter, at Charlton, at Bradford. I played against some good players. He had the best attitude to his game I have ever seen, ever witnessed. And that is why he was the best player I've coached. There was aspects of his game which, you know, he wasn't the finished article in terms of his technical or tactical play or physical attributes, but his mindset and his attitude was just absolutely standout. It was incredible to see, and at such a young age, that is such a strange thing to see, because it usually takes time for people to figure out and to understand what's needed. He had that, and he had that at age 15, and that's probably testament to his parents and the people who influenced him at a young age. So Ethan Ampadu was head and shoulders above the rest, and which is why we sold him to Chelsea, why he's a Welsh international, and I think he's currently playing in the German Bundesliga for the team who are challenging Bayern Munich for the title. So someone who will have a fantastic career in the game, and that is based on his attitude to the game more so than anything else.
Take note of that, boys. And final question, best cricket you've ever played with?
Best cricketer I've ever played with? That's a difficult one. There's not many I can choose from my current club.
Yeah. Anyway, he would say me if I wasn't here, boys. Honestly, Matty, thanks masses for dropping in. Obviously, giving up an hour of your time. Really appreciated. Hopefully, boys, you've got something out of it. It's not every day you get to speak to a professional manager. So, and again, listen to some of the things that Matty's talked about in terms of attitude. Goes a long way in not just in football, but in the wider scheme of things in work and whatever it is you do. Obviously, it's a difficult time at the moment, but when we come out the back of it, you're going to have exams next year and that sort of thing he attends. It's important that you do work hard and you get things done. So, Matty, massive thank you.
Pleasure.
Have a nice rest of the day, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Stop, man. Cheers, mate. Cheers, lads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Good questions, boys. Well done. You didn't embarrass me too much or anything.
Might embarrass you, to be fair.
You got done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give that to Nick Robinson. Hopefully she'll crop some good bits out of it, and then yeah, I'll see if I can pin him down again at some point if we're still stuck here in weeks and years to come. All right. My form, I'll see you in about an hour. The rest of you have a lovely day.
Yes,
That's
thank you.
See you later, boys.